Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. Today's video is going to be a little different than some of the stuff that I've done in the past. I kind of wanted to be a little bit educational. And what I wanted to show you was something that a lot of people call the purple label of death. And I kind of wanted to explain what that was and a little bit about what it actually means. So, first of all, the purple label of death is when you get, your CGC slab, and it comes back with, instead of the blue label, which is considered like, a clean book, you get this purple label, and instantly what happens is, no, there's not that many purple labels. Like, most books are blue label books, and what happens is blue label books, because they're the dominant book of choice, people have established values with it. They don't necessarily understand what a purple label might mean for pricing, because a purple label means that the book has been restored, and in a lot of ways that means that it's been tampered with. Like, either somebody has done what's called color touch, or they've added pieces to the book. Maybe they use glue to like fix tear seals, or they or tears, I should say, or they've done something on the spine. They've maybe added some staples. Who knows? Okay, so when you get that purple label, it can be very scary in terms of how much is this book worth. And a lot of people will pay like half the price, so it can really kill the price. And I'm going to get into all of that and explain what the purple label means and what the different numbers within the purple label. So if you look at this purple label, this is just an example. It says slight. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it says slight and C1. And that all has meaning. The C has meaning and the 1 has meaning. And I'll explain what those mean. So basically, there's a whole breakdown. Okay, so there's, first of all, the letter. Okay, so the letter is A, B, or C. Now, A means that it's excellent, that it's the best type of restoration, which most people would be like, well, is there any good restoration? Well, excellent form of restoration would be like the materials used are more the high-end material, almost conserved in terms of going for that conservation kind of element. So they'll use like rice paper, wheat paper, acrylic, or watercolor. And the reason why acrylic or watercolor is really important in terms of color touch is acrylic and watercolor are easy to remove. So A on the label when it's restored actually means that maybe the process can be reversed, and maybe you can get that blue label, and it's easier to do so because it's something where the restoration can be removed. Also, an A tactic within restoration is like leaf casting. The color match with that can be near perfect, and that's at that A level. Also, what ends up happening when people do color touch, if they, it used to be, I remember I remember a friend, he was always bragging about how he would do color touch and really make his book shine. And he would, like, you'd have these black covers, and he would take like a Sharpie, and he would literally like take the Sharpie and fill in the little white creases, and he'd be like, oh, look, it looks like a 10, it looks awesome. And so that tactic would cause problems, because what happens is when you use a pen, either a blue pen or a black pen, it will bleed through. The inks will actually go right through the cover and onto that first backside page. So and you can look at when you open up the book, you can see that it's kind of bled through. And that is not an A level of restoration. And so that would be something that's really hard to remove. Now, if it's A level, well, it won't have that bleed through. So that's really important to know. Another thing that can get restoration is interior cleaning. So a lot of the time what people will do is, on a label, it'll give you a color chart. It'll say, is it white pages? Is it off white pages? Is it cream pages? And that can really affect price. People have been getting into this whole idea of page quality, and having white pages is kind of considered that extra level of quality that the book can have. And you can see price differences between 9/8 that are like white pages and 9/8 that are off white pages. There can be a price difference. So what people will do if they're trying to restore, be a little sneaky with their books, is they will bleach the pages to get them closer to white, or they'll do things to kind of bring the whiteness back to the pages. And so with interior cleaning, that's what you're doing. You're trying to get the color back. Now, what that does is it has a couple things. Sometimes when you use certain chemicals on your books, you will get like an effect where it smells. It smells like there's a chemical that has been applied to the book. And with A level of restoration, there is no smell. Okay, the book feels natural. It's near perfect staple alignment. That's another thing. And if there's like staple replacement, which is another form of restoration, generally the staples have been replaced in a proper position. Now, sometimes when people do, it's the craziest thing. Often when staples kind of get pulled, people will do in order to kind of make the cover stay attached, because a detached cover really kills the grade, is what they'll do is they'll staple in some new staples, and they're often in a different location, because usually around the staple is where you get the damage, and that's why the cover gets detached, because the staple no longer is holding in the cover. So what they'll do is they'll staple it in a different location, and that will hold that cover in. Well, with A level, you can't have that. So basically the staples are in the same location as where the new staples are in the same location as what the original staples were. And married cover / pages match in size and page quality. That's another important thing. And professionally attached. So again, all about, and also when they use the staples in these kind of excellent level of restoration, they often will do what's called using vintage staples. So you can actually buy, old staples in order to have the same kind of staples as what was used in the comic when it was originally printed. And that just creates an extra level of having the comic as being as close to the original as possible. So that's excellent level. The next level is a B level, so AB. Now, a B level is also known as fine. The material used to do the color restoration is usually like pencils or crayons. Still, with a crayon, you can kind of remove it. This is why it doesn't cause as much damage. This is why it's a B level. It's considered bad, but not as bad. Chalk, and it can be also reglossing of the cover can get you that B level. Piece fill from cadavers. That's another thing that will happen with restoration. So what you can do is, let's say you have a book that's just like totally like the worst thing. It just looks like it's been eaten by a dog or something like that. And you have a book that isn't that bad looking, but is missing a few pieces. Well, what you can do is you can take that one that's really rough, cut all those little pieces off, and marry those into the one that you want to make look good. So by doing that, you can kind of improve the look. Well, that kind of activity happens within that B level. Now, piece fill is obvious in this case because it is in that B level, and obvious to the touch. So it's obvious when you look at it that it's been a piece filled, and it's obvious to the touch, and that's very important. Cover cleaning can result in slight color fading or excessively white pages. So in the B level, like what'll happen is when people try to, as I said, they try to whiten the pages. Well, when you whiten the pages, often what ends up happening is you actually fade out the actual colors as well. So the colors of the inks that form the panels, well, they get faded as well. So what you'll have is the pages will look whiter, sure, but what you'll happen is you'll have like a slight fading to the sharpness of the original page colors. So that is kind of a negative thing. In the B level, it is a slight fading. Now, when we get to the C level, you'll see the difference. Also, interior cleaning can result in a slight puffiness to the paper and cockling and excessive white, okay? Enlarged staple holes is another sign of a B level kind of restoration. Obviously crooked staples. So if they put the staple back in and it's not quite in the alignment, well, that's a B level. Or backwards staple insertion. So sometimes when people staple, I don't know what they're thinking, but you staple so that the flat part of the staple is on the outside of the book. Well, you can actually, in a B level, have it so that it's the opposite way, so that the flat part is on the interior pages and the bent over part, I don't know what it's called, is on the exterior of the book. And that would be really dumb, but it happens, okay? And that would be considered B tiered. And also the staples used would be non-vintage in a B level. Married cover and pages do not match in size or page quality, professionally attached. So when people marry in a B tier restoration, they might marry something that is maybe not quite the right size, but at least they do it in a professional way. Okay, so that's what a B tier is, all those kind of things done to the book. Now, poor. This is the most common thing that you see on books. Poor is the C level. And just like the one I showed you, I'll show you another one. Here's my All-Star, and it is a C1. So you'll notice the C and 1. I'm not sure if you can see that. I'm kind of zooming in as much as I can. And it says slight C1. So that means that this is what that C means in that C1. Material used is glue, pen, markers, whiteout, white paper to fill in missing pieces. So often now you're going to get that bleeding effect that I referred to earlier, where if you use a marker, you're going to definitely have the ink bleed through the paper. And removing that kind of restoration, this is why C1 is considered the worst, can cause some real damage to the book. And we'll get into what slight C1 means, but the point is C means that it was not done, it was very amateur or poorly done kind of restoration. Often you'll see amateur as well associated to C level, where it's just been really poorly done. Now, pieces, like when people put pieces in on a C1 level book, it is obvious from arm's length. So if you have the book this far away from you, you can tell that those pieces have been added to the book, okay? So it's not a good thing. And usually with a B, you're actually looking at it pretty close to see that there's something not quite right, or you have to touch it in order to feel that it's not quite right. So that's the difference between C and B. Now, bad color matching is another thing. So again, back to my friend who used the Sharpie. Well, the black, you can actually see when a Sharpie's been used within a black cover. It is not the same as the black. Well, that's bad color matching. And that's something that happens a lot in C1. So often you can look at a C1 book, and if there's color touch, you can tell that it has color touch because the colors don't quite match. Sure, it's purple, or sure, it's red, or whatever, but it's not the right red, or it's not the right purple, it's not the right color. They just, try to match something close, but not quite right. And bleed through is evident. So you will see when you flip open the book, you will see that bleed through. And that's very important to realize within a C1, that's something to look for. Color cleaning resulting in washed out or speckled colors. So often when people, as I said, they do these cover cleanings, so they do these kind of whitening things, like especially with white covers, you want to get it kind of like where the whites really pop. Well, what they'll do is they'll try to bleach the cover, and that can cause some serious damage to the actual colors of the book. It removes the dirt and the things that make the book look less white, but at the same time you're removing the color, and you'll see that within a C1, within a C class, I should say, you will see that fading, that kind of fading of the colors. Okay, new staple holes created upon reinsertion. So they'll be often with this type of restoration, you'll see new holes being created. Non-comic book staples used. So that's another thing. They'll just use whatever staples they find and click. Married, covered, and pages poorly attached with non-professional materials. Okay, so that's the A, B, C, and standards. So A being the best and most professional level of restoration. B is kind of like a moderate level or fine. And then the poor is the C class. So really, things aren't done that well. Very amateur. Now, the next thing is the quality scale. Now, the quality scale is a score from 1 to 5. So you'll see A1 or B1 or B5. It's a different scale. Okay, and what this number means. So the letter represents how well it's been done, but the number represents how much was done. So how much color restoration was done, how much how many pieces were added, or how big of an area was affected. So that's what you see in the numbers. So I'm going to explain each of the numbers. So 1, which is the slight. So 1 is the best, okay? So you want to get that lower number. So the ideal restoration would be A1, because it's going to be the least amount of restoration with the best restoration done possible, where it's the least intrusive. So what does the 1 mean? All conservation work. Okay, so it is like they're trying to conserve the book. And I'll get into conservation at the end of the video, what the difference between restoration and conservation. There's reglossing, interior lightening, pieces filled no more than a size of 2 binary clips. So very, very small amount of piece fill, very like almost like that big. Color touch in small areas like spine stress, and that's what I was talking about before. Corner crease on binary clip fill, married cover or interior pages and wraps if other work is present. So it's very slight. We're talking about a little bit of color restoration. I've seen books where literally it is 1 dot. somebody is like tried to fill in one little area of the book, and that it got flagged as a C1. So often C1 or A1, like anything in the ones, it can be removed often. You will have a piece missing, but if it's a C, because it's going to be amateurly done, you'll get that bleed through. But generally what they'll do, and you can get books where the restoration has been removed, what they'll do is actually cut it out. They'll actually remove that little section where there's the color touch, and you'll get like a little hole. But often on the lower grade books, it doesn't really impact the grade too much, because it is similar to chipping or very minor damage to the book. So just something to consider. The next level, so that's a 1. Next level is slight moderate, or 2. Piece filled no bigger than half an inch by half an inch. So I don't know, like that big. Okay. And color touch covering up to 1 inch by 1 inch. Okay. Piece fill up to 1 inch by 1 inch. Okay, interior piece fill, I should say. So what you can see is some books will have like exterior pieces filled, like as I said, the covers they'll kind of marry. Or sometimes they will do piece fill inside, where little pieces of the page have been removed, and they'll insert some other page, little extra page to kind of fill it in. Or they'll use leaf casting to do that. Okay, so that's the size. So as I said, the difference between the letters and the numbers, letters is about how professionally, and the numbers are about the size, really how much has been done. So you'll see the size is, for slight, it's very small. Moderate, you're getting to a fairly big area. Now we're getting into moderate, which is 3. Piece fill up to a size of 1 inch, so 1 inch square. And color touch covering up to 2 by 2, so a fairly big area of color touch. Interior piece fill up to 2 by 2, so again, a big area. So maybe the coupon was removed and somebody took another coupon and put it back in. That could be an example of this kind of restoration. Or leaf casting was done to fill in some of the missing pieces of the page. Okay, so that's the next one. 4 is moderate extensive. And piece fill can be up to 2 by 2. Now we're getting into bigger chunks. Color touch covering up to 4 by 4. So pretty big area has been color touched. Interior piece fill up to 2 by 2. Okay, so interior can be a little bit bigger than the exterior in order to be in this classification. Next one is moderate. So we did moderate. Now we did moderate excessive. Now we're going to do excessive. This is where they go all out. Any piece fill over 2 by 2. So if it's anything bigger than these previous ones that I stated, or color touch bigger than 4 by 4, or interior where it's bigger than the 2 by 2, then it's excessive. But you can also get things where people have recreated the interior pages. So that's, really major restoration that's been done. So moderate, often what people will say about excessive restoration is that it's like a Franken book, where like literally people will take 2 books and merge them into one, and you get a new book. And that looks a lot better, but often is excessive restoration. Okay, so those are the levels. Okay, so I'm going to show you some examples to kind of illustrate what each of those mean. And I'm cheap, so I buy restored books all the time, because I find it's a great way to save some money, because restored books can be anywhere from 80% cheaper, 80% of the price to even 90% off the price, where it's like 10% of the price. So you can get restored books very inexpensively. I've seen a Batman 1 where it was very restored, excessive restoration, and it was literally 1/20th of the value of the blue label. So it can make a dramatic impact on the price. So, you know, I find it is a great deal to get some of these cool keys that present very well, but they are purple labels. Okay, so I'm going to show you some examples. I showed you my All-Stars. That was just a quick one. Put that over here. I'm going to show you, so that was a C1, which is the lowest grade, the lowest slight version. Now, I'm going to show you a B. Okay, so this is a B. And I'll explain what is going on with this. This one is one of those ones that is so annoying, actually, because it's a great book, but what they did is they reglossed the cover. And I'll read the notes. Restoration includes cover reglossed, cover reattached with tape, interior tape on interior, cover, and interior. So so basically the big issue with this book is they regloss the cover. Covers will have sort of a natural shine to them. And what they did is, and it actually didn't improve the look. I think they were trying to be smart. They used like some kind of agent across the cover. And instead of making the cover look glossier or shinier, it actually makes it look darker and not quite as sharp. So it was not a good restoration. So it's in that B tier where it was probably semi-professionally done. But what ends up happening is sometimes as the gloss gets older, it can get kind of this kind of brownish gray kind of look. And that's the problem with it. So that was really the only issue with this book. Now, can I remove that? I don't know. I don't even know if it can be removed. And maybe some of the people that do restorations or de-restorations or whatever they're called can tell me in the comments below if you can actually remove glossing from comics. I think it would be very challenging because it would be the whole cover. But that qualifies as a slight B1 because it's as I said, it is a fine substance that's been added to the cover. The next one, and this is something I wanted to show and kind of explain some of the older labels that you'll see on CGC slabs, is this one. This is my Action 252, and this is a B1 as well. So semi-professional, moderately professional restoration, and very slight. And this one had restoration includes small amount of color touch on the cover. I believe it was just like when I looked at it, like you can use like a purple light or ultraviolet light, and you can see the restoration. It was like really small. It was, it is slight, right? So it was like a very small amount of restoration. It is not something that you can see just looking at the book, but it does show up when you use the blue light or the purple light. But the thing that I wanted to show really about this book is this here, where it says apparent. Like I didn't see it, but in terms of looking at the book and seeing the restoration, but this apparent means that you should be able to look at the book and see the restoration that has been done and know that it has been done. I'm going to look at the book again. I forgot where it was. I'm just looking at it. Maybe I actually can see it. It is really small. It is right on, I'm not sure if you can see it when I show it, but right there on Superman's leg, it looks like there was a bit of like the color maybe broke a little bit on his leg, and it looks like they filled it in with a bit of very well matched blue. So in this case, it'd be kind of, you'd have like a little thing, a hole, basically, for where if it was removed. So it might be one of those things where you can't really remove it without damaging the book severely. And at a grade of 5, it would drop the grade to probably a 3 or like maybe a 3.5 on a good day. So it could dramatically impact the grade to get that blue label. But the point is, this is something you'll see on a lot of the older slabs where they say apparent. And it's just something to look for. So it's still a C, a B1 level. It's like a very slight restoration, but it is considered something that's noticeable. Okay, next level. Oh, actually, I wanted to show you a professional one. This was from my friend Keston. This is A1. So you'll see that it says A1, slight A1. And this is as I said, this is the highest level where it's the least amount of damage done to the book. And restoration includes a small amount of color touch to the cover, pieces added to cover, and bottom edge of the cover trimmed. So when you have restoration that involves trimming, usually you will get like a 2 or 3. It'll get a higher tier based on the size of that trimming. So if it's a very small amount of trimming, you'll get that 1 level. So this got that slight or A1 level, where it's just a very small amount. Maybe it's less than a millimeter worth of trimming that has been done. And people will do trimming when they restore books in order to make the cover look sharper, like where it's not got that frayed edge. So this one had that. So it's got a little bit of color touch and it has a little bit of trimming. But when they did the trimming, they did it in a professional way. Again, it's that A level where they would do a very small amount and just really to make the cover look sharper. Also, the color touch is done in a way that it could be easily removed. Okay, so that's an example of A1. Next level is slight moderate, which is, and we got an example here, which is a C2. So this is amateur and slight moderate restoration. So a 2 is that slight moderate level, where a bit more has been done to the book. And in this case, I'll read the notes. Restoration includes pieces added to the back cover with tape on cover and interior cover. Now, this is one of those ones where, in a way, it's almost stupid because it's a 1.5. And what they did, and I will show you, is right here, you can see it. So, as again, this is a slight moderate. So it's based on the size of the pieces added. So if it's a certain size, it will get hit by the slight moderate. Well, you can see where this little piece right here has been added. Now, it's a 1.5, okay? If you like literally just said, screw it, I'm going to remove that piece, this would get a blue label. And so this is one of those cases where the restoration and unrestored, the value probably isn't much different. You know, you're not going to get any higher grade because you restored it and put that little piece at the back. It really is not going to impact the grade of the book at all. So it would probably still grade at a 1.5, and it would grade as a blue label if that was just removed. So this is one of those cases where you'd probably it would be a probably good case to crack it open and get that restored, unrestored situation where you get the blue label. You know, the price difference really when it's low grade isn't that much. It isn't like going to be like thousands of dollars difference, because a lot of the time people will say, well, if it's a low grade and restored, probably not much has been done to the book, or even if you remove that restoration, probably it's not going to make much impact on the grade because it's already a low grade. So often what'll happen is the value of restored books versus blue label books in the low grades is very different. Not very much difference. There's very little difference in value. It's maybe 90%. It's like really not much difference. Once you get to the high grades, that's where it really makes a difference. So like a 9.8 fully restored, well, that's going to have a severe price difference between that, a restored 9.8 and a blue label 9.8. And as I said, it can be as much as like 1/10 or 1/20 of the value. Okay, so that's the next stage. Then we get moderate. So I just happen to have lots of restored books, so I have actually all the different levels. So this is moderate. In this case, it's a moderate C3. So we have amateur and lots of restoration, like sort of that moderate level. Restoration includes color touch, piece added, staples removed, and tape on interior cover. So again, staples and the way that they're placed play a big role. So yeah, this is an example of a book that is moderate level of restoration, C3, so amateur restoration. Often when you get to this moderate level, it's almost impossible to remove that restoration without severely impacting the grade of the book. Again, the impact, since this is a 3.0, would be, I would treat this book as like a 2.0 in terms of value. Because it probably, if you did try to remove it and get that blue label, you'd probably get a 2.0 because of the damage that you do to the book. But yeah, it's often not reversible anyways, even at, once you get into that moderate level. The next level is moderate extensive. So this is the next level. So this would be a B4. So, and I'll read the notes on it. Restoration includes color touch, pieces added, tear seals, reinforced, reglossed, staples replaced, first wrap married, top edge trimmed. So you can see that once you're getting into that moderate extensive, a lot has been done to this book. And it's now impossible to remove the restoration. But it's still a great book. So yeah, so this is one of those ones where even though actually all of those things were done to this book, it is a B4, which means that it was done reasonably well. It's just not one of those things where you can ever bring it back to a blue label, because pieces have been added that will greatly reduce the value of the book. Also, the cover has been trimmed. Once it's been trimmed, it will always be trimmed, and it's impossible to really remove that or add back the trimming. You can't even do that. It's impossible. So yeah, it is a purple label for life. But that's just an example of that. And I'll show you a couple of examples of extensive restoration. So here's my Adventure Comics number 61, First Starman. This one is extensive C5. So this is like the worst possible case. You got amateur, some amateur guy, and he went wild with the book. He tried to do everything to this book. So I'm going to read to you what the amateur restoration is. Amateur restoration includes pieces added, glue. So that's a really big thing you shouldn't do with books, is use glue. Like, bad idea. So again, materials really do impact that ABC level. Tear seals, reinforced, right edge trimmed, centerfold married. So this book has had a lot of work done on it. And as a result, I was able to get it fairly affordably. Even though it's a low grade, strangely, even though it's a low grade, it doesn't really impact. I would say, and I'll get into that, how much it really impacts the price. It probably would drop the price by, I have a chart behind me, by about 40%. So this book would be about 40% cheaper than a blue label of the same book. So in the golden age, there's a lot more restored books. So generally, they're a little bit more forgiving in terms of the price effect of restoration. And when it's below a certain grade, really doesn't have that much impact on the price. So as I said, 40% still pretty major, but it's not like 100%. It's not worthless. So this is extensive C1, and I'll just show you a C5, and I'll just show you an example of a B5, which is better level of restoration, but still they went all out. And this is my amazing Fantastic Four, Fantastic Four #1, okay? And restoration includes color touch, pieces added, tear seals, reinforced, reglossed, staples replaced, right and top edge trimmed, okay? Top and right edge trimmed. So when they regloss this, it actually lost a bit of the colors. So it looks a little faded as a result. You'll notice that especially within the Fantastic Four. It should be more orange and sharp. So that's part of the problem with doing extensive restoration. You can really impact the quality of the book. I just wanted this book in my collection, and I didn't mind the restoration because it was a way that I could afford this book. This is a very pricey book, especially in this grade. Even restored, it is insanely expensive. So yeah, I just had to say all that. But this one is extensive B5, so slightly better level of restoration. Now I kind of wanted to show you one last thing and explain it a bit. Is the idea of one sec, where did I put it? I had a piece of paper. One sec here. No, I can't find it. Okay, so I just had some notes. Oh yes. So I wanted to show you one more level, which is conserved, and I'll explain what conserved means. So restored is, as I said, it's usually it can be professional, but they don't do things in a way that is purely to protect the book. They do things more for aesthetic rather than making the book last longer, like preserved, or so it's usually a slightly higher level. It's more like an A+ rather than the A level of restoration. So I'll read the notes on it. Conservation repairs are performed with the intent of preserving the structural or chemical integrity of the comic book. See, so the difference between restoration and conservation is, one is more about preserving the structural integrity of the book versus the other, which is more about aesthetics, making the book look like a higher grade. So the intent is a little different. Using professional techniques and materials. It includes aesthetic repairs such as color touch and piece fill. All conserved grades must satisfy the CGC quality scale of A. So it has to be that professional level and the quality scale of 1. So it's that slight restoration. And really conserved grade can be a lot of work actually. So it's kind of, there's caveats to it. But here's some of the things that are done to conserved books: tear seals, spine split seals, reinforcement, piece reattachment, some cover and interior cleaning, water or solvent. So you can use, when you clean the pages, if you use like something that's not going to leave a chemically smell, that's fine. Staples cleaned or replaced, some leaf casting, deacidification. So you can actually dip the book into sort of like a certain bath. Jerry the Jitterbug, he does a really great video on conserving books, where he shows that you can kind of put it in deacidification, and it will actually make the pages slightly whiter. But what it does is it kind of brings back the subtleness to the page, the suppleness of the pages, where it's not so brittle. A lot of the times, older books especially, they'll get brown and they'll get brittle and they'll kind of start chipping and falling apart. Well, deacidification will basically restore the paper quality. And materials used for conservation repairs: rice paper, wheat paper, vintage staples, and archival tape. So often when you get a restored book, they'll use tape and they will use like Scotch tape, like literally like, let's put some tape on this book. Well, there's special tape that you can get, which is called archival tape, that will actually, you can add to the book without damaging the book. And you can get it where you can remove it at a later date if you really choose to do that. The archival tape is done to basically make the book stay together. Often when you're restoring or conserving books, you have a situation where the cover is detached or the spine has been completely split, and the archival tape will allow you to fix those issues. Or pieces have fallen off the book, and you can reattach those pieces using archival tape. It is not necessarily the most aesthetic way of doing this, but it is what's considered legitimate in terms of getting that conserved grade. Now, one last comment that I want to make before I wrap up this very long video on restoration is the difference between conserved and restored in terms of price. It does impact the price. So I'd rather, and most people would rather, a conserved grade rather than the purple label. So you'll see that the prices are slightly higher. A book that normally would suffer maybe 80% decrease in price will maybe suffer only a 50% decrease in price if it's conserved. Conserved grades generally don't have as much history in terms of past sales history, so it's harder to say how much they really are worth. But a good rule of thumb is anywhere from 50% of the actual value of the book to 80% of the blue label. And it really does, again, depend on the grade. So the higher the grade, the less a conserved grade is worth. The lower the grade, probably not much difference between a conserved and a blue label. So that has been my very long explanation of all the lettering on the books. It's A, B, C, and the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what those all mean. And I hope this video has been interesting. And I hope that it helps you understand restored books. And I recommend checking out my channel in my archives, because I did a bunch of videos on, and they're all titled the same: Did I Overpay? And in those videos, I talk about the restored books that are in my collection, like some of the ones that you've seen. And I look at the price that I paid versus how much they're really worth based on them being restored. And I really get into looking at that scientifically maybe, to really understand how much those books are worth when they are restored. So I hope you check out those videos. I think they would be useful to this discussion. And tell me what you think. What do you think about restored books? What do you think about conserved books? Would you buy a restored book? I'd love to hear people's feedback. So thanks again for watching. I know this has been a long video, so please give me some feedback and tell me what you think. And if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy these videos that I make for you, please subscribe to the channel. Okay, thanks again. Bye.